like I had lost my best friend. You know, I say, you know, this can't be happening. But I saw it. I said, I don't know where to go. Really, that's my home. I grew up there. And, I mean, it just hurts to know that I'm not there anymore. To me, the church was the center of the community.
It's just a stressful situation when segregation and discrimination, and the only way you could do it is to do your best way to not have to deal with it. So you started in the home, and you didn't have any segregation there, and you went to church. So Cadiz was like a second home for us.
It could be a showcase again like it used to be, a pillar in the community, you know. It's a lot of our roots, Black heritage, Black history is so important that our children get to know and see where a lot of structure and culture in a community came from.
Gale Street is just as important from the point of view of the development of Edenton and its culture for African American as Broad Street and the downtown area is for European groups that are here. And people have been there just as long as they have here. That was the African American community for its religion and culture.
Gale Street, to me, is like a main artery in the Black community. A lot of talent went into the community, and what I mean by that, Hannibal Badham, home on Gale Street, he was one of the builders, as well as with his sons, who built a lot of structures here in Edenton.
East Gale Street in Edenton, North Carolina is a really very interesting and sort of a locally remarkable place, a very tight-knit community where you had the close proximity of both African American and white families living very close to each other. Both white and blacks were striving to live in houses that were done in these modern and at that time contemporary styles. They're very fashionable styles. They're styles that would have been promoted throughout the nation. And that really does, I think, speak to the fastidiousness of the Badham family and their building perspective and their ability to be prominent in this community during that time period.
When some of the older family members on the street died out, some of the younger people had left and they didn't come back. The houses were left vacant. You know, people moved on.
The East Gale Street is a fascinating street historically and architecturally, and because it's right there in the middle of things, really. It's maybe slumps some occasionally, but it needs to be preserved and needs to be vital.
We escaped segregation and discrimination by going to that church and the school. It was the fact that the church was as classed as any other church, white or black, in Edenton. That was the most distinguished thing that led me to really love Cadiz. If we hadn't had black carpenters in this town, I don't think we never would have had that Cadiz church. Not as decent as it was. We would have had a church, but it wouldn't be as decent as that church was.
The white Badhams helped the black Badhams, mulatto Badhams, they were mulattoes, build that. There were other African American churches, but in terms of providing leadership, that's where most of the educated people were. That's where they would meet. Even with the civil rights, when Martin Luther King came here during that era, that was the main headquarters.
Cadiz Church is one of the most remarkable buildings I've had the privilege of getting to know. It's a kind of a Victorian interpretation of a Gothic revival style, and the detailing both on the interior and the exterior is quite remarkable, from the trefoil designs that kind of relate to the Trinity that are on the belfry, to the really remarkable arches, Gothic arches on the interior. The building is, again, a very monumental structure. For such a wide span, I think the system that was incorporated into the building was very unique. It's worked very well, and that is why the building is still standing, because of the engineering genius of the builder, and also given the materials that he had to build the structure without steel, without some of the things that we have today.
I mean, it is powerful. It's the kind of architecture that just, makes people cry when they walk in it. And then the congregation's incredible story, and then even the name, Cadiz is the place that the Israelites stopped, out of their way out of bondage. So it's got it all, and I think people will appreciate it just by being in it. And I think that'll be from all segments of society. You can't go in there without thinking, what a cool place.
The bigger concern was how to handle the structural movement, and over time the church raised funds to pay a contractor to come in and put in some temporary bracing and to do some additional ties to keep the building from moving any further. It wasn't really going to fall down, but if we had another hurricane or a major windstorm, it could have caused even further damage. So a very simple bracing system was designed and installed just a few years later.
The thing about the parsonage was, it was so well equipped. So when you went over there, you said, well, this is the way them other folks live. So you really appreciated the fact that there is at least one person in this town that has a decent home. And it always encouraged you to say, one day I'm gonna have a home too, and I'm gonna have a nice home like this.
The parsonage next to the church, that was beautiful. We had, most times we had pastors that was out of town. They used to come there and stay. And plus we used to have the meetings, or either we would have Sunday school over there sometime, Bible study, and it was beautiful.
So it's overcoming a lot of the obstacles that were in place, keeping and restricting African Americans from progressing. And you can see here by looking at this architecture that clearly these people were striving and making great movement toward middle class status during that time period.
His home was built in the 1880s, and it's a two-story, kind of a late Victorian style with really, it's pretty exquisite interior woodwork throughout. The exterior was completely bricked over in the 1960s, but the interior remains remarkably intact with very ornamental Victorian woodwork throughout. All of the buildings that he constructed were constructed with resin-rich yellow pine, very careful in selecting good materials that would last for many years. He very carefully culled through materials for all of his homes, all of the buildings that he constructed, and certainly including his home.
The reason why we have that still there is that the families held on to it, the black families held on to it, and nobody was interested in gentrification like in Durham, which is, some people look at it as bad, and some people I look at it as neither good nor bad. It's just a natural part of civilization when things that are used for one group, the groups are no longer there, and because of the heritage of it, you let other groups that can afford it take it over, but not do away with it and make it functional and livable.
The houses have nice, beautiful structure, I think, especially the bottom house. I used to play in that yard during family reunions across the street with their grandchildren. And we would run from one house back across the street to our house and would just have a lot of fun. I remember the insides of the house. Well, at that time, us kids, we just thought it was spooky inside. But it was beautiful. I look at it now.
And you can tell by the decorative elements that it was once a very fashionable, really what we consider almost high-style Queen Anne Victorian home. That's denoted by the decorative woodwork, such as the turned frieze on the porch, the nice brackets that help on the support the frieze with the turned columns, the wonderful domed side, what some people colloquially refer to as a gazebo. It's just a side porch that has a nice roof on it, connects to the porch. And you can see some of the decorative elements like the punch work on some of the balustrades, the multi-light windows at the top, and then at the very top you have what we refer to as a barge board, which is a decorative curved element on the gable end of the front of the building, the nice fan light. All of these are the elements that identify what was a very common building type, almost ubiquitous by the 1890s and 1900, which was the Queen Anne style, which was part of the Victorian era. This is not a building I would consider to be beyond repair at all. I've seen, and I know for most people that don't look at these types of buildings all the time, this looks like a hopeless cause. But I would say that this is a building that has great vitality to it. It looks bad. Peeling paint always looks a lot worse than it actually is. We do see some rotten wood on this structure, but all of the major decorative elements are still here. And I see a lot more peeling paint than I do rotten wood, which is always a good thing. I would say in this case, this building has a lot of potential for rehabilitation.
The house I live in was built in 1765. Who built that house? It was a tavern, it was an inn where settlers bed down, you know? It had dirt floor. To me, if you tore things down, it's like erasing the history, you know? This is proof. The structures are the proof that this happened or this was done back then.
Because it's a rare surviving, basically one-room house or one-room inn that was enlarged either in the later 18th century or the early 19th century, but was built probably in the mid-1760s. It shows up on a Saudier map from the 1760s. But it's a remarkable small house, one-room house. It was converted into kind of what we call a coastal cottage with a porch roof that's kind of tied in or engaged to the main roof with this nice little sweep on it.
I remember riding around in a car with somebody from the town who was interested in cleaning up the mess and tear down that old building and talk to them about that house.
What did you tell them?
That they were old and important and not to tear them down.
I could hear that other person saying, well, that's just an old junky building. Why do I care about that?
Well, look again. It's interesting, and it's part of the fabric of the history of this town.
This is the Price House, believed to have been built by Robert Price, I believe. He was a carpenter. No doubt, I think he was probably associated in some way with the Badham family, perhaps worked for them, just living in this neighborhood. One would think that they were certainly close associates. This is an interesting little house. It's what we call a traditional gable front form, which is a form that goes back really to the ancient period, really all the way back to the Greeks when they were doing those temple form properties. It's something that Thomas Jefferson really promoted a lot. He liked the sort of classical aspect of it. In this case, it's decorated with some interesting, sort of what we call late Victorian expressions of the Gothic revival, which is really the king post treatment at the very top in the apex of the gable in the front. It has that nice little punchwork and sawn design that comes down as sort of a shortened version of a verge board on the front. And of course it has its original upper portion of the decorative porch, has the original porch post. It has all but it seems to be one of the original decorative brackets that are so associated with that late Victorian architecture.
So people here love to save things. You know, if there's a preservation angle with something, we're going to get it done. And I think that's different than other small towns.
So the community is sharing, and that's got a lot to do with just love. To have life back to Gale Street, it just would do a lot for Edenton as a whole. It would do a lot for the Black community. The culture would be recognized, you know, as it should be. Good things are going to come from this.
And I think that's what's the most important thing, you know, that it's the beginning of trying to really honor that architecture and honor that place. And as a member of the town council, as a, you know, just somebody living here with a love of architecture, now is the time to do that.
That is going to work if somebody here decides to not think about it as black and white and think about it as what is going to be good for everybody. I think it's a wonderful building to be saved for its own sake.
And I'm looking forward to that day that I get back over there. And like I told my children, I told my sister, I said, if I could just walk in there one more time. I told them, I said, you never know, I might even get married there. My daughter said, well, Mother, I think you'll be too old. I said, old people get married too.
Because once they're gone forever. And part of the story will be gone. So I think what's there now is well worth thinking outside the box and trying to explore different avenues to maybe first stabilize some and then later preserve, rehabilitate the structures.
You can't get that back once you tear it down. You know, it's like erasing history. And I never want that to happen, ever.